Welcome back to Unboxing OD. I'm Kenneth Pearson, and I'm glad that you're here. Today's episode is one I've been looking forward to because it's not just about the field of organizational development or industrial organizational psychology. It's about the story behind the work. I'm joined by Poor Bear Chalepah, a visionary leader, consultant, and soon to be Ph.D. in IO psychology. As a proud member of the Apache Tribe of Oklahoma, Poor Bear brings a powerful combination of lived experience, cultural insight, and academic rigor to his work. He's devoted to his wife, Serena, and daughter, Averie, and he centers his journey in family and purpose. In this conversation, we talk about the winding paths that bring us into the field, the power of growth mindsets, what culturally responsive OD looks like in action, and how leaders can cultivate authentic spaces of belonging. We also go deeper into the inner work of leadership and the courage it takes to dismantle barriers while honoring stories, cultures, and traditions. This is a conversation about growth, resilience, and authenticity, and I'm grateful to share it with you. And welcome, everybody. My name is Kenneth Pearson, and I appreciate you being here today. Today, we are joined by Poor Bear Chalepah, and Poor Bear brings a wealth of experience across various industries, specializing in leadership and organizational development. He is a visionary committed to helping others build not just great, but phenomenal companies. He is a proud member of the Apache Tribe of Oklahoma and actively engaged in Indigenous life. Deeply devoted to his wife Serena and daughter Averie, he centers his work in family and purpose. Poor Bear will soon earn his Ph.D. in industrial organizational psychology from Keiser University, joining the fewer than 0.01% of Indigenous people who hold a doctorate in this field. And I just want to say welcome, Poor Bear. I'm really excited to have this conversation here today. And congratulations to you on soon earning that PhD in IO psychology. I know how difficult and how much work goes into that. So congratulations to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. And thank you for having me on your platform and providing the voice to so many people to highlight their stories and unboxing OD because, you and I both know how complex industrial organizational psychology is, but then how complex people are. The other day, I was telling my wife, we really picked a unique field to go into because it's so complicated. So hopefully, I can be clear and concise, and all your listeners are able to get the information that they need, and then it excites them to dive further into all the things we discuss and
Yeah,
the ideas and moving forward. So, thank you again. Thank you.
yeah, and I appreciate it as well. And I didn't know your wife is in the IO field as well.
I was speaking in terms of other IOs like yourself and
Oh,
I.
yes. I'm sorry.
My wife is actually a mental health counselor. I figured
Okay.
it'd just be cheaper to marry one,
Yeah,
in the long
yeah,
run.
yeah. I get it. I get it. It costs a fortune these days. So
Yes. So so she's well versed and very well at what she does. She's opening up dance therapy, and that's her passion that she's
that's
going for. So yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Dance therapy. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll have to look into that a little bit because I always love the different forms of therapy. I mean, I know I'm sure that dance therapy has been around for a little bit, but I know I haven't really been exposed to it. So just because I'm a terrible dancer, so, I don't know if it would be beneficial for me or just create more like imposter syndrome or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or self-consciousness, I don't know, or maybe it'll
Yeah.
help me get over it, who knows?
Yep. Yeah. All good things.
Yeah. So I just wanna get it right into it here, and, as I was reading your bio, as we as had like some conversations in here too, your path hasn't exactly been a straight line, and I say that as a compliment. And the reason why I say it as a compliment is because neither has mine. I've worked in many different industries and many different jobs and, from, custodial all the way to like, organizational development, like just knowing how to do many, many different things has been really beneficial for me. But For you, from railroads to welding to psychology, what kept drawing you forward through all of those different chapters?
I would say always contributing to the bigger picture. I guess I've always been a dreamer. I've always been passionate about visions and missions, and I've truly taken those into the heart of what the organization is doing. And as I worked through those organizations and growing and learning about myself and probably not listening to myself the best I should have been, I left the welding industry and got into psychology, and always was looking to climb the corporate ladder. And I found it challenging because I would have supervisors or managers that I either got along with or we didn't. And the ones that I didn't, it was difficult to climb the ladder without brown nosing. And I'm not a brown noser. I'm not a butt kisser. I'm kind of very confident, very headstrong, and I'm like, let's cooperate. Let's work as a team. And I always saw these chinks in the chain, and I'm just like, what is going on here? And so I went back to school to get my degree in psychology. And then I found IO psychology, and I knew I wanted to help people and didn't want to do therapy one on one because I wanted to help the masses. I wanted to help those individuals that I have been in that position as well of being at work. And I'm like, where's the humanity more in the organization, and why is so every organization is different. I've had wonderful jobs, wonderful supervisors, and then the gamut the other way. And so I knew I wanted to be my own boss. And then I found IO psychology, and then consulting, is kind of where we go. And from there, I knew I've always wanted to help people, and people are my passion. I always love helping people in any kind of capacity that I can. And here I am, doing what I'm doing with my PhD and consulting work and stuff. And am I get really excited when I see people grow and companies grow and organizations grow. Because it's a part of life. It's a part of learning. Learning is something that we have to keep the gray area of our brains malleable, so we don't get stuck in certain ways of thinking, especially when we get in our later years. But it can be done. So I'm really excited when I just see growth, and learning, which, if you want to get into, the subjective understanding of learning, everything's a lesson, whether you like it or not. So yeah, so that's been my journey through all of it, is
Yeah.
always
And
helping
I
people.
love, hearing in there. I love the basically the central message that I take from all of that. There's two of them in there. And, the first one is that, that human-centered approach, just it's about, helping others and finding ways. And I think that's one of the reasons why I was so drawn to IO psychology as well, because, as opposed to other types of psychology, not all psychology fields, but other types of psychology, IO psychologists have the capacity and the ability to impact so many people in a positive way on basically on a much larger scale. So, with IO psychology and organizational development, I know they're two separate, but with organizational development, I think anybody who's in the organizational development field should have a working knowledge of IO psychology, and not, they don't have to get a degree or whatever, but they should have a working knowledge of psychology so they can understand. Because when I got into the field of OD, I didn't have the background in IO psychology. And I've since, working on my, finishing up my second master's, finishing up my master's in my capstone right now. But I found that over the last year and a half, almost a year and 8 months, my ability to do my job as an OD manager with with the Apache Tribe, and then now as an OD consultant has been just enhanced. And because there's so much more of an understanding of the not just on the strategic level, not just on the the initiatives or the change initiatives or whatever. It's on the more human level, kind of everything that you were talking about, like the human level. Like, no, it's not just we're gonna put this change initiative in, but I want to know like how it's gonna impact you, and not impact you in the workplace. How is it gonna impact you at home?
Mhm.
How is it going to be bringing this home with you, so that when you get home, how is it impacting your family, your wife, your husband, your children, etc.? And IO psychology has given me that new dimension of perspective and of being able to see things. And then the other thing you talked about in there is just that growth mindset. It's,
Yeah.
you know, and it's such a perfect, understanding of, and like I said, like, you know, when I saw, your profile and your bio, and I saw the, from this industry to this industry to this industry to this, I
Mhm.
thought to myself, we have so much in common. Like, I was like, I should just send you over all my stuff too, so you can
Yeah.
see where I've been, just all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah.
But and then it's just that growth mindset. It's just being
Mhm.
open to everything, and open
Yeah.
to learning, and figuring out where you can create, opportunity for yourself, but create opportunities for others as well.
Yeah.
That's so important in there. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I appreciate
And
that.
yeah, definitely. And I think this may cover one of the other questions, but that I think that's so important in leadership to have a growth mindset and to, in a way, use those modalities or those theories like servant leadership development and things to be able to grow yourself so you're able to grow your team and grow your organization. I mean, it is possible, which, time has shown and organizations have shown that, you can be a dictator, you can push and threaten and cause fear and the work will get done, but at the cost of not money, but at the cost of human suffering in a sense, so yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I know, I forget what they call that. So it's like the goodness. I was going through all these little leadership things, like all these little leadership terminologies in one of the trainings, and it was like autocratic or something like that. Like it was
Hmm.
like autocratic leadership, and I'm probably saying the term wrong, so I'll have to probably edit this out. So, but anyway, so it's like but going in and exactly what you're saying. Yes, the work will get done, but the bare minimum will get done. It will actually cost money, because you're going to get people that turn over, that leave, that you're constantly filling positions. It's just like this rotating door of people not staying, and
Hmm.
people disengaged. And I mean, there's a lot of buzzwords out there: the quiet quitting, the all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and these are buzzwords that are like mainstream buzzwords. They're not new. These concepts are not new.
Hmm.
But they cost companies tons of money, like
Yeah.
tons of money every single year, just based on the fact that they're just, do this, do this, do this, and
Hmm.
no room for growth, and no opportunity. It's
Yeah.
and I've been on that side where I've been managed by a leader that was like that. Of course, that job did not last very long, because
Hmm.
I'm very much like you. If I don't get along with you, I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll see you.
Yeah.
So the other thing, we talked a little bit about is you had the chance to move through so many cultures and communities in your life. So how did those early experiences, especially learning how to code switch, shape the way you think about leadership and belonging today?
Uh, it was very impactful in my upbringing because I was trying to fit in and, being a young kid, middle school or younger, or high school, always trying to fit in, find your identity, figure out who you are. And each culture that I was involved in and experienced fully accepted me. And later in life, I was like, oh, well, I'm not fully accepting myself. And
Mm.
each of the cultures did allow for that space for me to find myself better and in ways be able to learn the little nuances of each of the cultures with my Chicano friends and the Mexican American friends that I all had growing up, my Native American family and culture and traditions, my mom's Caucasian family and learning their culture and their traditions, as well as many other cultures that I was exposed to. Because I grew up in California in a little place called Kingsburg, but I always say Fresno because Kingsburg, nobody knows where Kingsburg is. So I just say Fresno, and I'm like, Central Valley, where all the fruit is. And they're like, oh, okay. Um, but Fresno is such a culturally diverse place as well, with Hmong population and so many others I can't think of at the moment. And being around those cultures allowed me to connect better with people by using their nuances of language, how they would tease and joke with each other, and so many other things that connected the community. And I would fit in each of these communities. And I've always loved psychology. I was always the friend that other friends would kind of come to and talk with. And, I'm like, hey, if you need to get it off your chest, get it off your chest. Like, I'm here. I'm not going to judge you. And then growing up, that has always been an interest of mine to get to really know people and their stories. And they all have stories, they all have something to teach me. And being genuine and authentic in wanting to know those stories and know that each of those, and I know it's cliche, but everybody faces challenges that we don't see. And so I've always kept that with me, even at a young age, knowing that people are people and we all struggle, we all go through ups and downs and so on and so forth. And I can be a better leader by being genuine and authentic, as well as showing my vulnerability and my downfalls and my mistakes to my team and showing that, you know, although I'm the leader, I'm bringing more humanity to the leadership position and being authentic of just who I am. And that takes a lot of inner work to work on yourself. And like I said earlier, I think it's just made me a better leader to experience that, work on myself, and still try to formulate an identity from that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's really powerful too. So I know that when we've had these conversations and we've talked a little bit that you've had this ability to fit into the many different cultures and then the experience of being accepted by many different cultures. Were you fully embraced though by those different cultures by just one? Or were you fully embraced by just one culture?
Um, I would say each of them, yes. My mom's, white Caucasian side of the family, my native side of the family, my Chicano friends and their Mexican American families. I wouldn't say one fully specific because each of them did fully accept me. I just had to learn to fully accept myself. And I always felt comfortable in any of the cultures that I was involved in. And so I wouldn't say just one, but maybe all three of those that I grew up with. And yeah, just learning to play and have fun and make jokes. I've always been I'm the clown of the class because I like to make people laugh. I like to joke around. I don't, I'm like to have fun and it's gotten me in trouble, but you know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's okay. I used to do the same. Got myself in a lot of trouble too. But I think it turned out okay. So I'm
yeah,
fine with that.
definitely.
So, so you shared that you resonated deeply with Chicano culture growing up. Is there a moment, a tradition, or even a small memory from that time that still influences how you show up in your work now, like in your work today?
Uh, the similarities between Native cultures and Native families and Mexican American and Mexican families is they like to tease you, and it teaches you to grow a thick skin, but also to be able to laugh at yourself, to not be shy, ask for things, to be involved. If you're hungry, go get a plate of food. Um, if there's elders, go get them a plate of food before you get yourself one. And my mom also instilled that in me, to not be shy. And I would say the first memory that really sticks out with my Chicano friends and their families was going to a birthday party with my best friend Carlos. And there's a tradition where the birthday boy or girl or person is supposed to bite the cake. And the game is when they bite the cake, you ram their head into the cake. And so it's kind of a challenge. I believe it's good luck to bite the cake. And so when they were doing that, I think it was my best friend Carlos's birthday or his little brother Irvin's birthday. So he went and he bit the cake, and then nobody was able to push his head down, because he's like, back up, back up. And then he bit the cake, and then somebody else just came around and grabbed a piece of the cake and just, splat it in his face. And then he took a piece and then he splat. And I'm like, I've never experienced this before. And I'm like, and they're all having fun. They're all laughing. And it was basically kind of like a food fight. And it's just one of those memories that really kind of showed me that their culture and their ways are fun, and they just like enjoying each other's company and knowing to have fun. And then pinatas were really fun, just all those different things. But that's one of the stories that sticks out where I knew not only was I going to have a closer friendship with Carlos, but that his family was fun. And I was like, a kid, and I'm like, this is fun. Who doesn't like that fun? So yeah, it's one of those things that I really enjoyed experiencing.
Yeah, yeah, and I appreciate that story because I know, when I was working for the tribe, there was one of the HR admins would joke with me and say, like kind of kind of tease me and stuff, and we would just tease each other back and forth, and she would always say, just so you know, it's like she was very conscious of it. Just so
Hmm.
you know, I tease you because I like you. I'm like, that's okay. I
Hmm.
tease you because I like you too. And we
Yeah,
had such a great relationship because
yeah.
we just did that, and very similar. It's going to work and every day somebody was making food somewhere, and
Hmm.
and if food was offered, it was required to take it because otherwise it would be considered rude. I think the first time somebody had offered me food, I had already eaten lunch. Like I'd just come back from lunch. Like, do you want a tamale? And I was like, no, no, I'm okay, I'm okay. They're like, it's really rude for you not to take it. I was like, I'll take it, I will eat it, and I will, and I'm super full right now,
Yeah.
but I always like to joke with my wife and and my family. I'm like, I moved to Arizona, 5.5 years ago. I moved to Arizona, and you would think like with all this like the great weather, other than it being like super hot in the summer, the great weather that I'd be in like great shape and everything. But no, I've gained like 40 pounds since I've lived here, and and I attribute that to work because I would just go and because the food is. So the other thing is too, like the food is so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. I definitely feel you there. Because when I would visit back to California when um, I was younger, and then I still go back each year. When I first started going back each year, I didn't time visiting all my friends' parents' house. And then so when I'd visit them, of course, I was skinny back then. I don't know if I'm skinny anymore, but they would call me a flaquito, skinny. And so they were always pushing food on me, like, oh, you got to eat more, you got to eat more. So I didn't some I did it once, and I didn't time it right. And I went to all my different friends' houses and saw their moms, and their dads, and they're like, oh, you need to eat something, here's a plate, and they fix you a plate, and tacos and tamale. Yeah, by the third house I was like, I I I can't eat anymore. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I know for me, like too, it was, I mean, we talk about the just the workplace. Like for me, it
Mm,
like those little acts or those acts really gave me a sense of belonging
mm,
because I was always invited in. I was always
yeah,
invited in. I was always like, and it allowed me to be a more authentic version of myself, kind of break down whatever, barriers or walls or whatever I had built up in the professional sense.
yeah,
And it gave me that opportunity to do it. So, when we talk about, I know we're talking about the cultural aspect, a little bit of the cultural aspect of it. But when that does come into work, it really does, it creates an opportunity for belonging. It creates an
mm,
opportunity to really get to know those individuals that you work with on a regular basis.
yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, excellent. So let's move a little bit into your
Mhm.
academic career here.
Sure.
And so now you're on track to become one of the very few Indigenous PhDs in industrial organizational psychology, which is an amazing accomplishment. Just PhD in IO psychology is an amazing accomplishment. I mean, I look at it. I'm going to finish up my MS and IOP, and I'm thinking to myself,
Mm,
do I want to go for another 5 years? Like, I don't know if I really want to do that. Like,
yeah.
do am I going to do a lot of research? Like, I love research, but I don't really love it at the PhD level. Like, you know,
Yeah.
so that is an amazing accomplishment.
Thank
So
you.
what does this milestone mean for you personally? And what are some of the stories from that journey that people rarely get to hear?
I would say I tie my educational journey to being a modern day warrior. And I say that because I I've always had this complex that I wasn't smart enough. And I counterbalance that with working really, really hard. And, I've never met another Native American um back in the day. I think maybe I don't quote me on this, who was a doctor, a PhD holder. And when I started this journey in my education, and I knew I wanted to get my MS, at least in IO. And then I found Keiser University, and they were like, well, you can get your PhD and you can save a little time. They kind of fast tracked. So don't quote me on that. I don't want them to kick me out of school. And it was just almost unfathomable to me that I could get my PhD. And being here now means that I'm the modern warrior to be able to advocate for First Nations people, Native Americans, Indigenous, what have you, to reach for and go beyond what society in a way says you can't do, because Indigenous people and issues aren't really put in the limelight of things. And so it's always amazing to see natives, doing social media, opening restaurants, opening businesses, getting education, meeting Dr. Adam Murray. Him and I are just like brothers. Like, we connected instantly. And those are the stories I don't think that are really highlighted, even to our own people of Native Americans. But just being able to be on this journey, I've, from the beginning, I heard a quote, and I can't remember who it's from, but I am the dreams that my ancestors prayed for. And that's why I got emotional in the beginning, because I'm not the first doctor of my tribe. There was another PhD holder that recently got his PhD in our tribe, in the Apache Tribe of Oklahoma. And I'm spacing his name, and I apologize. And I'm not sure if he was the first of our tribe. So that's why I say I'm a modern day warrior, to be able to work within the system that is, in a sense, colonizing system, and use it to my advantage to help our people in this modern age, and still be able to carry those cultures and those traditions and keep them alive while also navigating the modern world. I was very privileged to have a mother who is Caucasian, who is white, that holds master's degree in history and English, and she taught me the value of education. My father also held a college degree, and I say more my mother because my father passed away when I was 18. And even in my younger years, my mother would always encourage to learn, regardless of what my learning disability was, because I was labeled as borderline dyslexic, borderline. I don't know what that means. You know, so it really means a lot to carry on this. And then, of course, Native Americans in psychology are very, very few, and then even less in IO psychology. So getting my degree, obviously, I'm going to use that and all my education and experience to help other Native Americans, tribes, communities, leaders, business owners, anything and anyone that can come along my way.
And thank you for that. I mean, I know just seeing the emotion in the very beginning, and I know, for example, from the organizational development perspective, for example, a lot of the, let's say, the trainings in like leadership and like the westernized ones on like LinkedIn and nothing against LinkedIn and nothing against Franklin Covey and nothing against these companies. They have really great they have really great trainings that are available, but they don't capture the indigenous space. They don't adapt to what like the more in-depth levels of leadership and tradition and culture that goes into, let's say, just where I was working in the government space, that actually goes into the government, that goes into the services. So I know for what you're talking about a little bit is getting this knowledge and then bringing it back to your community and your tribe, and adapting what you've learned to really serve your people, and serve the tribe. So I know the the immensity and the difficulty of it from just my own perspective, and that actually brings us right to our next one. So let's kind of talk a little bit about culturally responsive OD, so
Mhm.
organizational development. So in your eyes, what does it look like when organizations move beyond the buzzwords of inclusion and start engaging with culture in a way that's actually meaningful?
I would say, to go beyond the surface level, the inclusion efforts are needed to actively be integrated with the cultural awareness, the respect, and the equity into every aspect of the organization's operations, especially if that organization is set or works with a particular cultural group. So it would be advantageous for businesses, if there's an American based business and they're going to take on clients in India, obviously the organization is going to look into, okay, well, what are the cultural nuances and this and that and so on and so forth, and all these different things. And they may use Google or Chat GPT. However, their best bet is to actually talk with people in India, to ask, like, hey, this and that, and find consultants, because I'm sure there's East Indian consultants that will work and say, yeah, this is what you're going to want to be aware of, and all these different cultural aspects. And thus it shows that the corporation or organization just doesn't want to come in and do a money grab. They actually want to work with the people to understand, and even bring on onboarding those different
Mhm.
cultures, and being able to open up that space where different cultures can express themselves in a westernized organization.
Uh-huh.
And that's where it revolves around or involves recognizing and valuing diverse worldviews, adapting to policies and practices to reflect the cultural context, and fostering those authentic leadership relationships with employees and communities that, as I mentioned before. And that's where, like, also a leader can do that with a diverse workforce. And so that's where you get diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Uh-huh.
And it has shown to help organizations very well if it is done correctly, because it can be done incorrectly and it can actually harm the organization. So getting experts in that know how to train and understand all the complexities of it moves it beyond just the buzzwords, because humans, we can easily tell, yeah, it's just a buzzword, or the leader's like, you're not really being authentic. You're not really wanting to know my story. You're just coming at me to know my culture so I can produce more. And, every single human can read through the BS. So that's why I always encourage leaders to be authentic, to want to know stories, and to incorporate these policies or procedures, as well as asking the employees,
Mhm.
what do you think we need more training on, all these kind of different things. So that's what I like to push towards my leaders.
Yeah. Yeah, and I for from a leadership perspective too, understanding what your team needs, understanding your team, understanding, because I know that, the on the surface level, when we talk about DEI or talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, the mainstream right now, it's all about race and it's all about culture,
Mhm.
but the reality is when we talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, all of that, you know, every single one of us is different. Every single one of us has a different upbringing. Every single one of us is, it could be age, it could be sex, it could be gender, it could be whatever it might be. But we all have
Mhm.
different perspectives, and we
Yeah.
all have different experiences, and we all have different, like psychological, mentalities. It could even be,
Mhm.
which is what makes us all very diverse. Which is why
Yeah.
I hate when people joke around and they're like, "Oh, you're unique just like everybody else in the world," and they say it sarcastically, but yeah,
Mhm.
you know what? I am unique, just like everybody else in the world. And
Mhm.
that's what makes me me, and that's what makes
Mhm.
you you.
Yeah.
And being able to see that in other people, really like exactly what you're saying, the seeing the person for the person.
Mhm.
They're not, they're not just their culture. They're not just their gender. They're not just their, whatever, their experience. They are
Mhm.
more than that. They are them. They are the person that they are. So I really love that message, and I know that, the second part in there, like, is, when we talk about that equity centered leadership too, kind of what you were
Mhm.
just talking about. So what do you think is the biggest misunderstanding people have? And how do you guide someone from a place of guilt or hesitation toward grounded, responsible action?
I would say one of the biggest misconceptions is that it's kind of surrounded about the concept of being nice.
Mhm.
And that's where that authenticity comes in. And that's where, as a leader, to be more empathetic, to be more vulnerable, to be more humanistic, bring more humanity to the role, will actually improve the equity centered leadership of yourself, as well as, which is it's probably there, but I'm not saying it. It's not just lip service. It's actually action. Action speaks louder than words. And so when you take actions to do all of those things, it shows your team that it can reshape how the team dynamic is operating. And there is that psychological safety where people will speak up, better decisions are made, better experiences are shared, Everybody has something to contribute. Everybody has knowledge and experience. Even the 18-year-old kid that comes in and this and that and has only been on the earth 18 years, they still have something to contribute. Everybody has some experience or knowledge or understanding. I would ask the 18-year-old, are you adverse in technology? What are these new things? How could we work it faster? Because I'm always going to my daughter with technological stuff, and I'm like, things are moving so fast. I mean, I can kind of find my way around a computer, but are you open to that? Is there this? And just kind of picking their brain and asking them, what are your strengths? What are you good at? What do you like to do? What are your hobbies? All these different things, and then all of that makes the team better. It allows for the allocation of all the resources that everybody holds, because everybody has the tools and you can give them tools, but they bring their own tools to the table, and you never know if there's a tool in there that you're like, whoa, that's what we needed. That's what we needed for the team, for it to get to the next level. And many leaders assume that good intentions alone are enough, but like I said before, we can read through that BS, and so that authenticity in that leadership is really, really valuable.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And you're talking about the 18-year-old, and for me being a Gen Xer, whenever I meet somebody that is in that Gen Z, even Gen Alpha, I mean that they're not quite in the workforce yet. They're getting close to it, like in terms of like the they're not quite 18-year-old yet, but one of the questions whenever I meet my teams is like, what does leadership look like to you? I asked my niece that the other day. My niece is she's 15, almost 16 years old. Like, what does leadership look like to you? What does it look like? And I mean, they might not have the words necessarily or the full understanding of what leadership is, but they have the feeling. Because I know, like when I was back, playing sports when I was a kid. Um, I had a soccer coach that I just, was, one of those that would yell at you in front of the people if you made a mistake. And, people are 13, 14 years old, like,
Mhm.
and I knew back then that's the type of person that's the type of coach I didn't want to be. I couldn't
Mhm.
put a name to it. I couldn't understand it, but I knew like that was what I did not want to be. I wanted to be the complete opposite. And finding out that yes, there is an actual terminology and stuff like that for it.
Mhm.
And so I think that's great. You talking about including these individuals in finding out what their skills are, finding out what their strengths are, and really bringing them on board on the team to have them belong there and have them really be included in that space. So
Yeah, and as you and I know, because some of the listeners may not know, that goes back to the basic psychology of wanting to belong, the need to belong. Even introverts need to belong. They want to be included in things. They may not want to be socially at a birthday party or something. They still want to belong to and make connections with other humans. So obviously you have to get a job if you can, or something, or make a living some other way. But if you get a job and you are an introvert and it's like, okay, now I'm part of this team, like I don't really mesh with this. However, you can still help them feel included and belong.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I'm gonna say I'm not really big on the Myers-Briggs, the MBTI,
Hmm.
but my last assessment has me at 93% introverted. So I don't even know why I'm doing this. This is just
Yeah.
this takes so much energy out of me. So I'll sleep for the rest of the day here. But
Yeah.
I know we were when I was at PSYOP, PSYOP
Hmm.
conference, we were just saying like, there's just 5,000 introverts here that don't have to explain IO psychology to anybody for 4 days.
Yeah.
They're loving it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah, one of the things you were talking about earlier, and you've really emphasized is, you said that phenomenal leaders often do the inner work, their inner
Mhm.
work. So what does that really look like in a day-to-day life? And why do you think some people shy away from it?
Um, Developing leaders, because that's also part of what I do in my consulting work, is it basically breaks down to living. You will always need to do inner work and look in the mirror and have those very raw conversations with yourself and discuss those things with yourself of your strengths and your inaccuracies. I don't like to say weaknesses. They're just inaccuracies because they're things that you can improve. And I like to encourage people to focus more on their strengths and develop those. And it's very scary to basically remove the ego, and that takes work. And doing that day to day, you don't have to have a spiritual journey every single day, but within a team and a leadership begins with humility, empathy, compassion, vulnerability that always can demonstrate to employees, like I said earlier, how they see your humanity. And so it's very scary for anybody to look at themselves because it's uncomfortable and then see that there are inaccuracies. And I don't like to say the words right or wrong either, because those insinuate different things. So I like to say strengths and inaccuracies, because if you have inaccuracies, that means you're just shooting the arrow at the target and you might just completely be missing, but that doesn't mean that you can hone it in. That doesn't mean you can keep practicing and focusing and working on yourself. And I think the one of the scariest things to do is to take that inner work and that inner journey within yourself and be truly authentic and vulnerable and open. I think those are modern warriors. I think that's what a modern warrior can do, because they speak power with the work and the understanding that they have done within themselves. And, leaders can be phenomenal leaders. I think if they can continue to work on themselves and have those growth moments and encourage their team and others and to do the same.
Yeah, yeah, and I fully understand that internal journey, that inner work that needs to get done. I was, I've been on that journey for a very long time. I would say I wouldn't say all of my life. Or I would say probably all of my life. Kind of like like almost like I don't want to say like a free spirit, but just one of those people that just kind of let life lead me where it needed to lead me.
Mhm.
But I know for the last several years, I've been working. I have my one of my masters is in creative writing. So
Mhm.
I've written a lot of poetry, and was reintroduced to the art of haiku and on haiku poetry. I'd say about 5 years ago or so. Um, and it started out as writing exercises, just oh, there's a competition. I'm going to write a haiku. Great, this is wonderful. But then something kind of like like switched in me, kind of like something was triggered in me, and it became more of a practice, like an everyday. So we talk about these everyday daily mindfulness practices, and this ability to really reflect on the simplistic moments, and really understand the impermanence, and really understand connection, and to nature and to people, and understand self-awareness, and like all the emotional intelligence, levels in there. It really has given me the ability to do that. um
Yeah.
and so Utah, and it's made me a better. Yeah, if you would have talked to me 6 years ago, like, we probably wouldn't have been having this conversation, because I would have been a mess and all over the place and whatever. But this mindfulness practice, the art of haiku has given me the ability to recenter, and then
Yeah.
to keep more of a calmer interior, so that when, let's say you know, let's say there's some type of crisis at work, I
Yeah.
can I can be calm, and I can think, and I can problem solve, and I
Mhm.
don't get involved in the chaos of the
Mhm.
crisis. So I love that perspective, by the way.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. It goes back to, being open to that growth mindset and learning,
Mhm.
because we're not I'm going to look back at this podcast. I guarantee it, maybe a year from now, and I'll be like, you were so dumb talking about me. Like, you knew nothing. And that's the amazing thing is I don't know what I don't know. You
Yeah.
don't know what you don't know until you come across it and you're like, oh, my perception or my perspective was inaccurate.
Hmm.
Now I can rehone it. I can learn it. I can use it. It's a new tool instead of being fixed on, I know this and this is how it is and this is how it's going to be. And I'm like, that's what I love about science because science is always showing us like reality isn't what you think it is. You know, I can name a million different things, but that's why I'm just so fascinated about it. And I'm like, nothing is what we think it is. And so we use what we have and we move forward and we learn new things and we be excited. I'm always looking for opportunities to be wrong because then I'm learning something. How draining would it be to always be right, to always be accurate? Like that's that's a boring life to not find things and be like, wow, I wasn't accurate at all about that. I'm going to
Yeah.
change my perspective now. So,
Yeah. 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 And then just, I'll look back at this a year from now and be like, man, you were so dumb. Talking about me, not you.
yeah.
And that's, and it's funny, one of the things, previous podcast guest that was on, the episode hasn't been released yet. So
Mhm,
we were talking about this exact same thing. Like not
mhm,
really like in terms of like, if I was always right, if I knew everything, like what does that do for me? What
mhm,
does it do? It just makes me a know-it-all. And
mhm.
I said it would make me a pompous know-it-all because I know I would be super pompous, so because I'd be like, well, that's not right, like,
Yeah.
oh, I'd be correcting everybody all the time because I know I am. So, um, yeah, so that's wonderful. So, let's talk a little bit more
Mhm.
about you, about what you have going on. So, and I'm really impressed by this. I want to learn more about what you're doing, and
Thank you.
so you're in the process of launching not one but two nonprofits.
Mhm,
I don't know how you're doing it, but okay, good. So you're in the process of launching not one but two nonprofits.
mhm.
What's the bigger vision you're building toward, and what have you learned so far about turning an idea into something sustainable?
So I'll answer the second part first. This great quote, I don't know exactly who said it first, and I apologize. I'm not giving credit where credit's due, which is very hard for researchers in IO.
Well,
But you can't steer a parked car.
nice.
You got to get the car going, no matter how horrible you think it. You can't have everything in place first or know your direction or destination. You just got to get the momentum started. So when you get the car moving, even if it's slow, you can still steer it and be like, okay, I want to go here, I want to go there. And I credit this because my wife told me this quote a couple of months ago, and I was like, yeah, it's a really good analogy. You just got to start somewhere, doesn't matter where it is, and it will unfold as it needs to, and you put in the work for it to unfold. So the two nonprofits, I can't say a whole lot about. However, one will be focused specifically towards Native Americans, Indigenous, either businesses or people, and any identifiers like that who could use the knowledge of IO psychologists. And that will be focused on being able to have access to information and knowledge that isn't readily, readily, I can't say that word right now, that isn't available to everybody, you know? So being able to, give that access and that information and stuff to those who may not have it. The second nonprofit is going to focus on reducing recidivism.
Okay.
And that nonprofit will focus just on that concept and being able to truly provide the support and help that those individuals need. So they're both in works, they're both, you know, going where they need to. And that's part of what I'm focused on right now. I still have my consulting that I do. I also do other, we're never just doing one thing. We're always doing a million things. And there's my dissertation. I'm also doing that.
Oh, just that,
Yeah, there's that thing too. But I already wanted to get started because I'm like, well, I don't need the title of PhD because I already have the experience. I already have the knowledge. I already have the education in the dissertation phase. You've already done all the classwork. You've already done all of everything. And the dissertation is just if we give you a research, can you do it and do it accurately with, you know, ethically and all of that stuff, which is fun in and of itself, because my dissertation is focusing on leader membership exchange theory and servant leadership theory, and how culture, specifically Native American culture, influences those.
Okay.
So what the leader and member exchange have when the leader uses either servant leadership modalities or cultural influences from their own tribes, and how natives bring their culture to their leadership and how they influence and stuff. So, there's that's going to be finished. I don't know if it's kind of a pilot dissertation, which is a little bit scary. I don't know if I'm the first that's doing it, but that will also help just understand more of what I can give to one of the nonprofits for that, and just helping where I can in many indigenous
Yeah.
communities, cultures, and people, and all that stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there's so much to unpack in there too. I
Mhm.
mean, it's the providing the IO psychology services. Like, first off, to have that resource for small businesses,
Mhm.
it's so valuable.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't, and I know a lot of people ask me like, what is IO psychology and what is organizational development? I'm like, we're in everything. So we're in everything in every single organization. Everything that you do that is people centered, that has people in mind, is an IO psychology initiative. Okay. Whatever
Mhm.
you want to call it. So, that being able to do that, being able to provide those services to small businesses is going to be such an amazing um, benefit for those organizations. And the second part in there, the recidivism, making sure that those individuals have the tools and resources that they need to be successful. So, and the last thing in there, the LMX, and the leader exchange theory, or leader
Mhm.
member exchange, LMX, and servant leadership, and exactly what you're talking about. In the Native American and Indigenous spaces, like, servant leadership is almost foundational.
Mhm.
Because it's a place where, when I was interviewing, or talking to people, employees at the tribe, and you'd ask the question like, why do you work here? I want to serve my people. And that was it. Like, that was, I would say, 95% of the time that was the answer. So why do you work here? Why do you want to work here? Why do you want to do the thing? I want to serve my people. I want to
Yeah.
serve my community. And that was it. And or I want to serve the organization that serves the community. So I'd be interested to read that once that's all set for you. I don't want to do any editing. You said your wife was an English major, right? Oh, no, your mother.
My mom, yeah. She's
Yes, yeah.
retired, but I'll still put her to work.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Just throw it over to her. She'll
Yeah,
she'll
she's
she'll
got
I'm sure
plenty of
she'll.
time.
Exactly, exactly. So, um yeah. So, and we're just gonna wrap up here. So if you had to share one phrase or sentence that captures how you lead and how you want to lead in the future, what would it be?
I would say I lead by meeting people where they are, honoring the fullness of their stories, and creating spaces where they can be authentic and they can thrive. And like you said earlier, give them those tools that they can use not just at work, they can take it home, like NVC, nonviolent communication by Marshall Rosenberg. That's just one tool that I like using in workspaces, and in my personal life. It's helped, and every day I can work on deepening that work by continuing to work on myself while building lasting structures that not only nurture belonging but dismantle the barriers that keep it from flourishing. So
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you,
thank
Poor
you.
Bear. And thank you so much for being a guest on this show here today. I am greatly appreciative of your time. I know we had a nice long conversation, so
Yeah,
thank you so much for being here.
yeah,
And
thank you.
thank you for taking the time out, and I look forward to many more conversations with
Yeah,
you over the
definitely.
years. So
Thank you.
thank you.
And you as well, Kenneth. Thank you for having me on your platform and giving that space and your time and your energy. I greatly appreciate you and all that you do and what you're doing. And I'm excited to see where you go and how you flourish and all those things. And I know we'll definitely, you know, keep blazing the trails. When I actually, here's another thing. I'm going to start a podcast as well. And I'm
Okay.
definitely going to invite you to be on there as well. So,
Awesome.
that's in the
Awesome.
works too. So,
Awesome. That would be wonderful. I appreciate
thanks.
it. And yeah, so have a great rest of your day. That brings us to the close of this episode of Unboxing OD. A heartfelt thank you to Poor Bear Chalepah for sharing his story, his insight, and his vision for what authentic leadership can look like. What stays with me from this conversation is that OD is never only about process or structure. It's about people, their journeys, their cultures, and the spaces we create for belonging and growth. If today's episode gave you something to reflect on, I invite you to keep exploring these ideas with me. You can learn more about my work at Pearson & Pearson LLC and dive deeper into the framework I've developed in my book, The Flow of Five Tiers. And if you'd like to connect with me or with Poor Bear, you'll find all of our contact information linked in the show notes. Until next time, keep reflecting, keep growing, and keep unboxing what work really means. Take care.